Growing up, I wasn't allowed to read or watch media that had vampires and similar creatures in it. So even if Twilight hadn't been slightly before my time, it still would have been totally off the table. Of course, I've grown up in a world with Twilight as the cultural phenomenon that we all know it became. So there are certain things about it that I know just through like cultural osmosis without ever having to read the books or watch the film series. However, I recently got curious, wondering if the original book series by Stephenie Meyer was vastly different to the movie series that ended up so much more famous, like, let's be honest. And even beyond that, is it good? Like, is it good, actually? Maybe a little bit? So I am here to report my findings and take you through the journey of me reading Twilight for the first time ever in the big 2026. Let's go. Bella Swan is moving back to her hometown of Forks, Washington. Her parents are divorced and she's lived with her mum, Renee, in Phoenix, Arizona for most of her life, but now, at her age of 17, she is moving back to Forks for reasons that will be revealed shortly. Her dad, Charlie, is a quiet man just like his daughter, but he loves her and he's bought her a truck as a kind of homecoming present, and although she is wary at first because it's very, very old, she actually loves it when she sees it. It is so crazy the amount of M dashes that Stephenie Meyer uses. Like, I think there might be one on every page, if not like every other sentence. She pretty much abuses them in the way that I abuse semicolons, so I can't actually judge at all. But oh my god, it is so funny to see this many together at once. Something that is immediately really funny to me is she says about Forks, "It was beautiful, of course, I couldn't deny that. Everything was green. The trees, their trunks covered with moss, their branches hanging with a canopy of it, the ground covered with ferns. Even the air filtered down greenly through the leaves." Is that why they did it? Is the green filter book accurate? That's crazy. She starts at her new high school, and it isn't as terrible as she thought it would be. Bella is a very anxious, kind of socially awkward person, but if you look at her first couple of days, like, objectively, without any of her commentary, it isn't awful. Like, she immediately finds a group of people to sit with at lunch. She's kind of the talk of the town because her dad is the police chief, and her coming home is, like, big news, but no one's, like, being a dick about it or anything. She actually fits in really well. Like, she says herself, "I was glad to see that most of the cars were older like mine, nothing flashy. The nicest car here was a shiny Volvo, and it stood out." And then when she's observing the rest of the students walking into the school, she says, "My plain black jacket didn't stand out, I noticed with relief." And then on literally the same page, she goes, "They were two girls, one a porcelain-coloured blonde, the other also pale with light brown hair. At least my skin wouldn't be a standout here." Bella, queen, you actually haven't mentioned anything that is a standout yet. Like, there are also a couple of boys who are clearly interested in her, which can be overwhelming, but she gets through her first day relatively unscathed. At lunch, in the cafeteria, is the first time she sees them. I love how the Cullens are described here, like ethereal, uncanny beings. Unnaturally beautiful, unnaturally graceful, fully inhuman creatures. They've lived in the town for 2 years already, and they haven't made any friends outside of their tight-knit family. Jessica, one of the girls Bella is sitting with at lunch, basically says, "Oh yeah, that's the freaky gorgeous incest family. We have that here." The story goes that the town doctor, Dr. Carlisle Cullen, is only in his late 20s, and he and his wife Esme have adopted all of these teenagers for some reason. Emmett Cullen, Alice Cullen, Rosalie and Jasper Hale, and the one who Bella takes a particular interest in. "That's Edward," says Jessica. "He's gorgeous, of course, but don't waste your time. He doesn't date." Bella's next class after lunch is biology, and of course, the only empty space is next to Edward Cullen. She notices, now that she's close enough to him, that his eyes are coal black. He doesn't talk to her throughout the whole lesson. In fact, it looks like he hates her. He's leaning away from her, like, fully repulsed, and then when the lesson is over, he dashes out of the room before anyone else can even move. Later, Bella is standing behind him in the school office, and she overhears him trying to get his biology class switched. The rest of the week, Edward isn't in school at all. Bella is kind of equal parts relieved that she doesn't have to deal with all that, but also really tense because she can't help but feel like he's specifically avoiding her. And he doesn't even know her, but the evidence is there. In this chapter, we discover that Bella likes cooking, or at least she's good at cooking, and she used to cook and do the grocery shopping back in Phoenix, so the action is kind of familiar and homely for her, comforting. She makes steak and potatoes, which I feel like is really impressive to get right. At dinner, she asks her dad about the Cullens and mentions that the kids are kind of weird, and surprisingly this touches a nerve with Charlie. He's like, Dr. Cullen is a great man, we're lucky to have him, there's nothing wrong with those kids, people are just mean because they don't like outsiders. Bella is like, oh, okay, sorry. The whole week passes uneventfully. Bella relaxes into some kind of routine, she's getting comfortable, but on Monday, Edward's back, and he looks different. More relaxed, perhaps. More human, somehow. They have biology together again, and Edward actually speaks to her. He introduces himself and asks about her life, and she notices that his eyes have changed. They're no longer black, but a shade of golden brown. Of course they are. Also, he calls her Bella, which she prefers when everyone else has been calling her Isabella. I really like this scene that they have together. Bella kind of shows off because she's done this lab before, so she knows all the answers, and she's a bit annoyed that Edward also seems to know them. I don't know if the writer is trying to convey that he's particularly smart at this point, or if it's like a hint towards the fact that he's done this lab before as well, probably hundreds of times. I'm trying to come at this book without considering any of my prior context, but I know they're vampires. It's a cute scene. Edward is nice, which puzzles Bella because he seemed to have disliked her so much the previous week. Mr. Banner came to our table then to see why we weren't working. He looked over our shoulders to glance at the completed lab and then stared more intently to check the answers. So, Edward, didn't you think Isabella should get a chance with the microscope? Mr. Banner asked. Bella, Edward corrected automatically. Actually, she identified 3 of the 5. They talk a bit more, and Edward gets Bella to admit why she moved back to Forks in the first place. Her mother has remarried to a man who moves around a lot. At first, her mum didn't move with him for Bella's sake, but Bella could tell that she missed him. So she made the decision to move back to Forks so that her mum would be free to travel with Phil. Decent reasoning, especially for a 17-year-old. I can buy it. The next day, Bella wakes up to find that it has snowed in the middle of the night, and the roads are really icy. She makes it to school all right, discovering that her dad had put what they called snow chains on her truck when he left for work. This is so cute for Charlie, who has so far been such a gruff, quiet man. It's such a dad way of displaying love, you know? I just recorded for so long without realising that I wasn't actually recording. I love the way that Stephanie Meyer wrote this scene. The way that everything kind of unfolds slowly so that you know something bad is happening, but you don't know like what exactly straight away. I saw several things simultaneously. Nothing was moving in slow motion the way it does in the movies. Instead, the adrenaline rush seemed to make my brain work much faster, and I was able to absorb, in clear detail, several things at once. Edward Cullen was standing 4 cars down from me, staring at me in horror. His face stood out from a sea of faces, all frozen in the same mask of shock. But of more immediate importance was the dark blue van that was skidding, tyres locked and squealing against the brakes, spinning wildly across the ice of the parking lot. It was going to hit the back corner of my truck, and I was standing between them. Of course, she is saved by Edward, who grabs her out of the way and knocks them both to the ground, even stopping the truck in its tracks. Again, I have to say that Stephanie Meyer paints this scene really, really well. It was absolutely silent for 1 long second before the screaming began. In the abrupt bedlam, I could hear more than one person shouting my name. But, more clearly than all the yelling, I could hear Edward Cullen's low, frantic voice in my ear. Bella, are you all right? I'm not going to read him like that the whole time. Bella asks, how did you get over here so fast? I was standing right next to you, Bella, he said, his tone serious again. I love that line. She knows that's not true, and he knows that she knows. I also love that she calls him out, saying, you were by your car. His expression turned hard. No, I wasn't. I saw you. All around us was chaos. I could hear the gruffer voices of adults arriving on the scene, but I obstinately held on to our argument. I was right, and he was going to admit it. He promises that he'll tell her all about it later, and then the ambulance takes her away. In the hospital, Tyler, the boy who almost hit her, is placed in the bed next to her. He lost control of his truck and he's really apologetic, even though he's in a much worse shape than she is. Edward turns up, and so does his dad, because of course, if you remember, Carlisle Cullen is the town doctor. Well, he's not the town doctor, this isn't the 1950s, he's one of the doctors who works at the hospital. Bella is immediately like, wow, this is the hottest guy I have ever seen. He discharges her, but says she probably shouldn't go back to school, instead giving her the orders to go home and rest up in case the symptoms of a concussion should emerge at any point in the near future. She pulls Edward for a chat, but she still can't get anything out of him. Even though she swears that she isn't interested in telling anybody else, she just needs to know. But no, he won't say anything. And she goes home on Dr. Cullen's orders. I decided I might as well go to bed early that night. Charlie continued to watch me anxiously, and it was getting on my nerves. I stopped on my way to grab 3 Tylenol from the bathroom. They did help, and as the pain eased, I drifted to sleep. That was the first night I dreamt of Edward Cullen. The next month is tough for Bella. She is the centre of attention at school, being the girl who nearly got smushed, and to make matters worse, Edward is no longer speaking to her. He even ignores her in biology, where they are still lab partners. There's also a bit of school drama going on with the girls' choice dance that's coming up. Jessica wants to go with Mike, but Mike turned her down because he wants to go with Bella, but Bella swears that she's not going to the dance. Bella turning him down makes Edward look at her for the first time in, like, a month. When she's leaving school, her other friend Eric asks her, but she swears she's going to be out of town during the dance. And then, when she's getting in her car and she's waiting in the queue to leave the school car park, Tyler asks her to go. Bloody hell, is there no other girls in school? She goes home and makes enchiladas and thinks about Edward. Of course he wasn't interested in me, I thought angrily. I wasn't interesting. And he was. Interesting and brilliant and mysterious and perfect and beautiful and possibly able to lift full-size vans with one hand. Bella has invented this trip to Seattle basically just to avoid going to the school dance, so she asks her dad about it, who is rightfully a little bit concerned about her driving to Seattle all on her own. She has her truck, but it doesn't have very good gas mileage, and she is 17 years old. But he agrees after much persuasion. The next day when Bella gets to school, Edward offers to drive her to Seattle, saying he's been meaning to go himself. That way they can take his shiny Volvo and her truck can stay out of it. It is irritating to me that I am finding Edward Cullen quite attractive. Like, oh, the vampire love interest specifically created to appeal to young women and who dominated 2000s pop culture is hot. Should we throw a party? It reminds me of that Superman tweet. He's also a little freak weirdo, and unfortunately that is my type. He has that vampire thing where they like randomly speak really eloquently and kind of old-timey because they are from old times. Honestly, Edward, I felt a thrill go through me as I said his name, and I hated it. I can't keep up with you. I thought you didn't want to be my friend. I said it would be better if we weren't friends, not that I didn't want to be. Oh, thanks, now that's all cleared up. We were under the shelter of the cafeteria roof now, so I could more easily look at his face, which certainly didn't help my clarity of thought. It would be more prudent for you to not be my friend, he explained. But I'm tired of trying to stay away from you, Bella. She agrees to take the road trip with him because, realistically, she's not going to say no. At lunch, Edward is sitting alone instead of with his family for once, and he literally does this. Was it more of a this? Or a this? She goes over because she's whipped, and they have a flirtatious back and forth. Realistically, I know the only reason that I like their dynamic so much right now is because they have a lot of tension. And when they get together, it's probably going to become a little bit more boring for me. But we might have a way to go because we're only through this much of the book, and Jacob hasn't even been introduced yet. Edward says he'll say goodbye to her here because he's not coming to biology. And when Bella gets there, she finds out that they're doing blood types today. Bella faints and gets taken to the nurse by Mike, but Edward intercepts and takes her there himself. He literally picks her up and carries her, which kind of icked me out. I don't like that. Bella said that she could smell the blood, which is what makes her sick. Edward says people can't smell blood, and she says, well, I can. She bemoans the fact that she still has to go to gym after this, and Edward gets her out of it. He forces her to let him drive her home, like he physically drags her by her hoodie, which is such an early 2000s idea of being romantic. Like, oh, he doesn't take no for an answer. In the car, he asks her how old she is and then says that she doesn't seem 17, which is a crazy mature for her age. He brings up her mum, whose new husband is like a bit younger than her, and is basically like, so you're cool with age gaps, huh? Let's not bring attention to it. Stephanie Meyer definitely falls into the trap of making all the other girls in Bella's school like kind of bitchy and jealous. But I understand why she did it, and I wasn't really expecting anything else from early 2000s romantasy. Edward is supposed to be this perfect, mysterious creature who all the girls want, and this plain Jane new girl is the one to take his fancy? Except that all the guys seem to fancy her, so it's like, doesn't really compute with the fact that it's supposed to be surprising. Bella and her school friends take a trip to a beach in La Push, the nearby Native American reservation, and this is where she meets Jacob Black, who is 15 years old? Why can't we have a relationship option that doesn't have weird age gap implications? I know 15 and 17, like, isn't that far apart, but he was just recently 14, you're just about to turn 18, that's just too weird for me. If I didn't already know that he becomes a secondary love interest and causes one of the most famous love triangles in history, I would not have got that at all from their first interaction. One of the girls who's jealous of Bella calls out, "Why didn't you invite any of the Cullens, Bella?" And one of the boys from the reservation says, "The Cullens don't come here." Bella thinks, the way he said that kind of implies that there's something more to the story. Jacob seems young and impressionable. I wonder if I can get any information out of him. And she does. "Do you know any of our old stories about where we came from? The Quaaludes, I mean," he began. "Not really," I admitted. "Well, there are lots of legends, some of them claiming to date back to the flood. Then there are the stories about the Cold Ones. According to legend, my own great-grandfather knew some of them. He was the one who made the treaty that kept them off our land. The Cold Ones are the natural enemies of the wolf. Well, not the wolf, really, but the wolves that turn into men, like our ancestors. You would call them werewolves." Jacob says that these particular Cold Ones claimed that they don't eat humans, but even so, the Quaaludes felt like there was always a possibility that they could lose control of their vampiric urges, and so they made a deal. Stay off our land, and we won't expose you to the humans. Easy as pie. "So how does it fit in with the Cullens? Are they like the Cold Ones your great-grandfather met?" "No," he paused dramatically. "They are the same ones." Ah! Bella is shaken up by this because she's already been having her own suspicions, and this basically just hits it home. Mike comes and interrupts, saying they're packing up because it's going to rain, so Bella says, "Thank you, Jacob," and leaves. That night, Bella dreams about Jacob being a werewolf and Edward being a vampire. Whew, take a breath. She wakes up on Sunday morning and does an internet search for vampires, trying to square everything she knows about the Cullens with everything Jacob said about the Cold Ones with the results. She gets embarrassed with herself even suspecting this, but goes to sit in the woods and think about how she's in love with Edward, and even if he is a vampire, she doesn't feel scared of him. She only wants to be around him forever. There was one thing I was sure of, if I was sure of anything. The dark Edward in my dream last night was a reflection only of my fear of the word Jacob had spoken and not Edward himself. Wordy. Even so, when I'd screamed out in terror at the werewolf's lunge, it wasn't fear for the wolf that brought the cry of no to my lips. It was the fear that he would be harmed. Even as he called to me with sharp-edged fangs, I feared for him. The next day she gets to school, and to her disappointment, Edward isn't there, but neither is any of his family. All of the Cullens and Hales are absent. Bella goes to Port Angeles with her friends Angela and Jessica to help them pick out outfits for the school dance, even though she still swears she's not going. Remember, she's going to Seattle with Edward. I take back what I said about all the girls being jealous of Bella. Jessica and Angela are actually really solid. And it is nice to see some female friendship in a book which ostensibly revolves around the male love interest. Of course, it is a romance novel, so there's gonna be cows outside, but you don't want your female main character to lose all of her ties to everybody else. It's actually just the one girl who's jealous, called Lauren, and Jessica's had her moments, regarding Edward, but I can forgive her for being 17. Bella comments that she's starting to like Angela in particular, and I just know that when she integrates with the Cullen family, she's not going to have any other friends anymore, so I'm just enjoying it while it lasts. Anyway, after they're done shopping, Bella says that she wants to find a bookshop and she'll catch the other two up. They say they're happy to go with her, but she's like, no, I won't make you stand around and watch me while I look at books. Just go to dinner and I'll meet you there. So she starts to look for a bookshop, but she quickly gets lost and the sun is setting fast. She's followed by a group of men who she tries to get away from before realising that she's been chased into a dead end. They've trapped her. When who should come around the corner in a shiny silver Volvo? The first thing he says to her is put your seatbelt on, which is really funny. And then he tells her to distract him. Just start babbling about some nonsense so that he can distract his mind and calm down. And she does. They catch up with Jess and Angela, who admit that they already ate while they were waiting for Bella, and Edward says, I'll drive her home. And so the girls leave them to it, with Bella's assurance that she's fine. Jessica bit her lip, trying to figure out from my expression whether that was what I wanted. I winked at her. There was nothing I wanted more than to be alone with my perpetual saviour. An honest-to-God wink from Bella Swan. Who ever said this girl was boring? They go into the Italian restaurant where they get a table for two. Obviously, the server and the hostess are both, stunned by Edward. You really shouldn't do that to people, I criticised. It's hardly fair. Do what? Dazzle them like that. She's probably hyperventilating in the kitchen right now. He seemed confused. Oh, come on, I said dubiously. You have to know the effect you have on people. He tilted his head to one side and his eyes were curious. I dazzle people? You haven't noticed? Do you think everybody gets their way so easily? He ignored my question. Do I dazzle you? Frequently, I admitted. They order Cokes. Edward lets Bella drink his as well, and of course he doesn't order any food. They candidly discuss the fact that Edward can read minds, everyone's except hers, but nobody says the V word yet. He admits that he followed her to Port Angeles, knowing that she would probably get herself in some kind of trouble. Although he can't read her mind, he can read the minds of those around her to know where she is. Bella is not suitably freaked out by this, although, of course, no, Edward cannot be creepy to her. They leave the restaurant and get back in Edward's car, where he wants to start asking her questions to figure out how much she knows. Although she has a couple of more questions first, mostly about the mind reading. Even though Edward is like, that's actually not one question, he answers them all, which is really cute. Why do you think you can't hear me read her mind? I asked, curiously. He looked at me, his eyes enigmatic. I don't know, he murmured. The only guess I have is that maybe your mind doesn't work the same way the rest of theirs do. Like your thoughts are on the AM frequency and I'm only getting FM. He grinned at me, suddenly amused. My mind doesn't work right. I'm a freak. I love her. I hear voices in my mind and you're worried that you're the freak. They've got quite good banter. Bella suddenly realises that Edward is going about 100 miles an hour, which is the scariest part of the book so far. She makes him go down to 80, which is still crazy, and I don't know if it's a vampire power to drive that fast or if he's just more 17 than I thought. He asks her what her current theories are on what he is, and after some pressing, she admits that she spoke to one of the Quaalude, Jacob, about vampires. What did you do then? He asked after a minute. I did some research on the internet. And did that convince you? His voice sounded barely interested, but his hands were clamped hard onto the steering wheel. No, nothing fit. Most of it was kind of silly. And then I stopped. What? I decided it didn't matter, I whispered. It didn't matter? His tone made me look up. I had finally broken through his carefully composed mask. He's more angry with her for saying that it doesn't matter than for implying his family might be vampires. But Bella, I'm a monster. She doesn't care. She wants that cookie so effing bad. He doesn't confirm nor deny, which she basically takes as a confirmation. I am curious. My voice, at least, was composed. He was suddenly resigned. What are you curious about? How old are you? 17, he answered promptly. And how long have you been 17? His lips twitched as he stared at the road. A while. This dialogue is iconic, obviously, but pretending like I've never heard it before, it's kind of fun. Of course, it is Stephenie Meyer's way of framing it so it isn't so weird. Like, no, he is 17. He's not a grown man lusting after a teenager. He's in high school. Of course, Stephenie Meyer did not invent this trope. Spike and Buffy were on that shit since the late 90s, arguably. It seemed to be a thing in the collective consciousness that once you pass an age that it is humanly possible to be, it, like, comes back around again to being age appropriate. It's only in recent history that we've gone, hey, wait, why were all those characters in high school? Also, when you're marketing to young girls, you want them to be able to put themselves in the shoes of the main character. I get that, but I'm not saying it's not weird. It is weird. Stephenie Meyer was 29 when she wrote Twilight. Plenty old enough to realise how icky the trope is. It would have been so easy to make Bella Swan like 2 or 3 or 4 years older at the least. And why is Jacob 15? No precedent for that. Anyway, they talk around it some more. Don't laugh, but how come you can come out during the daytime? He laughed anyway. Myth. Burned by the sun? Myth. Sleeping in coffins? Myth. He hesitated for a moment, and a peculiar tone entered his voice. I can't sleep. He asks if she's scared that he drinks blood, and she says that Jacob said that the Cullens don't drink human blood, which he all but confirms. However, he says that they still have the urge, which is what makes them dangerous. It's all a matter of self-control. But she points out that although it's difficult for him to be with her, he's not hungry right now, because his eyes aren't black. Observant queen. She admits that she really cares about him as well, and he's all, oh god, I've gone too far. And she's like, it's too late, I love you. She doesn't say that, but that's the implication. He drops her home and promises to be in school the next day, saying he'll save her a seat at lunch. The next morning, Bella wakes up, and Edward is waiting in her driveway to take her to school. That's a little bit more than saving her a seat at lunch. It's only him, everybody else travelled separately. He gives her his jacket because she left hers in Jessica's car last night. Cute, cute, cute. Under the shelter of the cafeteria's roof overhang, Jessica was waiting, her eyes about to bug out of their sockets. Over her arm, bless her, was my jacket. I cannot, for the life of me, imagine that being read in an American accent. It just sounds like something my mum would say. Oh, bless her. Jessica is understandably gagging to know what's going on between Edward and Bella. She walks off and Edward reads her mind, saying that she wants to know if they're secretly dating. Edward says that she can say yes if she likes, as that's just a less complicated answer. Of course, it's just a less complicated answer. Bella is stressing about it all day, but when she gets to trigonometry, their conversation is actually really cute. So, are you going out again? He offered to drive me to Seattle Saturday because he thinks my truck isn't up to it. Does that count? Yes, she nodded. Well then, yes. Wow. She exaggerated the word into 3 syllables. Wow, I guess. Edward Cullen. I know, I agreed. I don't know how you're brave enough to be alone with him, she breathed. Why? I was shocked, but she didn't understand my reaction. He's so intimidating. I wouldn't know what to say to him. I do have some trouble with incoherency when I'm around him, I admitted. Oh well, he is unbelievably gorgeous. Ow! Oh my god, foot cramp. When Bella leaves her last class before lunch, Edward is there to walk her to the cafeteria and they sit together. He buys loads of food in an effort to make her eat because, you know, he just cares about her, under the guise that he will eat half of it, although obviously they both know he can't eat human food. Edward has some questions for her as he was listening to Jessica's thoughts when Bella told her about him. Of course, like everything else, she's only playfully annoyed by this. I warned you I'd be listening. And I warned you that you didn't want to know everything I was thinking. You did, he agreed, but his voice was still rough. You aren't precisely right, though. I do want to know what you're thinking. Everything. I just wish that you wouldn't be thinking some things. This is such a weird way of phrasing that. I love when Edward actually does come across like an uncomfortable teenage boy. It just makes their flirtation so endearing. AU where he's actually human, but they just enjoy LARPing. Weird kids, AU. The people yearn for an Edward Cullen who's not a creep. Anyway, one of the things that Bella had said to Jessica was that she likes Edward more than he likes her, and he asks her how she can possibly think that that's true. Aside from the obvious, sometimes it seems like you're trying to say goodbye when you're saying something else. What do you mean, the obvious? Well, look at me, I said, unnecessarily, as he was already staring. I'm absolutely ordinary. Well, except for bad things like all the near-death experiences and being so clumsy that I'm almost disabled. And look at you! I waved my hand towards him in all his bewildering perfection. His brow creased angrily for a moment and then smoothed as his eyes took on a knowing look. You don't see yourself very clearly, you know. I'll admit you're dead on about the bad things, he chuckled blackly, but you didn't hear what every human male in this school was thinking on your first day. I blinked, astonished. I don't believe it, I mumbled to myself. Isabella Swan, since you joined Forks High School like 6 months ago, 3 separate boys have asked you out. It's a school of 300. She puts Tyler's weird obsession down to the whole near-murder situation, but that doesn't explain Mike or Eric. I'm not saying it's impossible for her to have a sort of goob mentality, but breaking the immersion for a sec, this is a work of fiction. It was not necessary to put all of that in there. This bit would play out so much better if Bella was a true loner. Or even if she was like the Duff of her friend group. There would be much more substance to the story. But no, she is just a regular pretty girl who girls like and guys ask out. And the only thing supporting her worldview is like low self-esteem, I guess, which is a perfectly acceptable reason in real life, but this, again, is a work of fiction, so there was nothing stopping you from just putting a little more of something in there. Edward asks Bella if she needs to go to Seattle on Saturday or if she wouldn't mind if they go somewhere else. And of course she doesn't mind. And then they discuss vampires hunting for a little bit and then she goes away. In lab, it's movie day, where Bella goes insane for the entirety of the movie. You know, it's pretty cliche for the woman in romance stories to be reluctant or even unconsenting in some severe cases, so I do appreciate a portrayal of a teenage girl who is so freaked out. Next, Bella has gym class where she's paired up with Mike, sweet Mike. Do you want to be a team? Thanks, Mike. You don't have to do this, you know. I grimaced apologetically. Don't worry, I'll keep out of your way. He grinned. Sometimes it was so easy to like Mike. After class, he asks about Edward, and he is unsupporting, and honestly, he has some valid concerns. I don't like it, he muttered. You don't have to, I snapped. He looks at you like you're something to eat, he continued, ignoring me. I choked back the hysteria that threatened to explode, but a small giggle managed to get out despite my efforts. She is right where she wants to be. Edward drives her home and she asks about hunting again, asking if she would ever be able to watch them hunt. And Edward basically says, if you were there when we went hunting mode, we would eat you. So no. He says, tomorrow it's going to be my day to ask questions, and it is. He asks her everything about herself the whole day, and isn't it just the teenage girl fantasy to have someone who wants to know everything about you, and a camera that wants to keep recording you for as long as you need it to? It's basically a repeat of the previous day. He picks her up in the morning, walks her everywhere, they have lunch together, sexual tension in lab, and they go home. But today they sit in the driveway for hours, with Bella just having the space to talk about herself. Finally, Edward says that her dad is going to be home any minute, and then another car pulls up in front of them, one that makes Edward speed away as soon as Bella gets out of the car. It's Jacob! And Jacob's dad, Billy Black, who clocks Bella immediately. Billy and Charlie watch the game together. I don't know what sport they're actually watching. Basketball? Bella said something about basketball in an earlier chapter, I think. Bella reluctantly tells Jacob that she was with Edward Cullen, and Jacob just laughs and he's like, oh, that's why my dad didn't look happy. He doesn't seem to believe any of the stories, and he thinks his dad is just a suspicious old man. A superstitious old man. At the moment, Jacob and Bella feel like Did anybody watch H2O Just Add Water? Do you know when Emma's little brother got a crush on Ricky and she was like, oh, that's really sweet, but you're a baby? Bella spends the rest of the evening stressing that Billy is going to say something to her dad, but nothing comes of it and they leave. The next day is a school day. Edward picks Bella up. They have their little routine now. It's still his day to be asking questions. At lunch, they discuss why Edward's family doesn't like her. He basically says, well, everyone has seen us together now, so if I end up killing you, we're all gonna have to leave town. And she's like, yeah, that is a concern. He then says he's leaving after lunch to go hunting with Alice, just to make sure that he's not hungry the next day when they're alone together. Thoughtful. So, Bella's choices confuse me here because obviously she and Edward are no longer going to Seattle, but they're still going somewhere together. So why does she tell everybody that she's cancelled the Seattle trip? My best guess is that it's to protect Edward so that no one knows they're together. People are still going to put two and two together, but it's a good try. Her dad is going on a fishing trip, so he's not going to know whether she's there or not. But wouldn't it be better if somebody came to her house to check on her? They just thought, oh yeah, she's in Seattle, and not, oh no, she's missing. Finally, it's Saturday and Edward picks her up. He's angry when he discovers that no one knows that they're together. Because while Bella is trying to protect him, he's trying to protect her. People knowing that they're together is a deterrent from killing her, which makes him less likely to do it. Protecting himself is protecting her. Bada bing, bada boom. One piece is two. They take her truck and Edward directs her to a beautiful patch of forest off the 110. They hike until they reach a beautiful clearing and Bella notices that the sun has come out. Edward had told her that although they don't burn in the sun, vampires still can't go in direct sunlight, and he promised to show her why, and the time is now. Edward in the sunlight was shocking. I couldn't get used to it, although I'd been staring at him all afternoon. His skin, white despite the faint flash from yesterday's hunting trip, literally sparkled, like thousands of tiny diamonds were embedded in the surface. He lay perfectly still in the grass, his shirt open over his sculpted, incandescent chest, his scintillating arms bare. His glistening, pale lavender lids were shut, although of course he didn't sleep. A perfect statue, carved in some unknown stone, smooth like marble, glittering like crystal. This chapter is the culmination of all of their tension leading up to this. They're alone in the forest, he's open about his vampire tendencies, she's open about how she doesn't care about any of that. But Edward pisses me off, dude. He keeps talking about how he's so dangerous and she shouldn't tempt him, but you're the guy who made a move on her! You've brought her to the middle of nowhere to, like, what? Test yourself? Damn. He speaks about how badly he wants to eat her. How badly he craves her, and that's the core of vampire fiction, right? Someone who desires you so fully to the point of wanting to eat you. Cannibalism as romance is by no means a modern invention. However, it has been really popular as of late, with movies like Bones and All, or TV shows like Yellow Jackets. Okay, the cannibalism in Yellow Jackets is not fully a metaphor by any means, but Shauna ate Jackie because of repression. It took everything I had not to jump up in the middle of that class full of children, and he stopped abruptly, looking away. And then he goes on, and then, as I tried to rearrange my schedule in a pointless attempt to avoid you, you were there. In that close, warm little room, the scent was maddening. I so very nearly took you then. Took you is crazy. It reminds me of this quote from Bones and All, the original novel by Camille DeAngelis, where Marin and Lee are discussing one of Marin's recent kills. You never did it in a car before? Lee reached for another slice. Don't be embarrassed. After a minute, nobody can see what you're doing with all the windows fogged up. I just happened to catch you at the start. I felt myself getting hot in the cheeks again. We'd only met yesterday, and I knew hardly anything about him, but we understood each other as we talked around the bad thing we both did. Somebody eavesdropping from the next booth over would have thought I was the kind of girl to do things with boys in the backseat of a car. Cannibalism in fiction is inherently sexual. Not to mention that Edward's refusal to eat Bella is a whole damn thing in itself. Stephanie Meyer is famously Mormon, making the repression themes of the book all the more interesting. Bella wants him in a sexual, human way, and he wants her in a vampiric, consuming way. But neither of them can have what they want. Kristen Stewart was interviewed in 2024 and was quoted as saying, "It's such a gay movie. I mean, Jesus Christ, Taylor and Rob and me, and it's so hidden and not okay. I mean, a Mormon woman wrote this book. It's all about oppression, about wanting what's going to destroy you. If I was 16 years old and reading vampire fiction and coming across these themes for the very first time, I can see why it was so formative for so many people. So Edward went all the way to Alaska to get away from her, but while he was there, he started to feel stupid for being driven out of town by an insignificant little girl. What? So he came back and tried to act normal around her, but he was a stupid fool. He discovered that not only did she interest him in the way of a yummy yummy snack, but he had developed feelings for her. And so the lion fell in love with the lamb, he murmured. I looked away, hiding my eyes as I thrilled to the word. What a stupid lamb, I sighed. What a sick, masochistic lion. They talk and flirt like this for the rest of the afternoon, touching each other's hands and hugging, and I've just realised that he's been sparkling this whole time. He listens to her heartbeat, feels her neck, hugs her, basically just trying to build some kind of immunity so her scent doesn't drive him quite so insane. When it starts to get dark, they decide they should go back, and Edward offers to show Bella how he moves through the forest. He gives her a piggyback and runs back to the car. This obviously makes her feel a little bit motion sick, which is quite funny. As she's sitting next to the truck trying to catch her breath, Edward decides it's the perfect moment to kiss her. Just a chaste little peck on the lips, but she immediately tries to make out with him. She just got carried away, and he's just glad that he didn't immediately eat her. He laughed aloud. I'm stronger than I thought. It's nice to know. I wish I could say the same. I'm sorry. You are only human after all. Thanks so much. She agrees to let him drive them back if he promises to drive at a reasonable speed. In the car, Edward finally tells Bella how old he actually is. He had turned the radio to an oldies station and he sang along with a song I'd never heard. He knew every line. You like 50s music, I asked? Music in the 50s was good. Much better than the 60s, or the 70s, ugh. He shuddered. The 80s were bearable. That's such like a Vampire the Stat line for some reason. He sighed, and then looked into my eyes, seeming to forget the road completely for a time. Whatever he saw there must have encouraged him. He looked into the sun. The light of the setting orb glittered off his skin in ruby-tinged sparkles, and spoke. I was born in Chicago in 1901. He was saved by Carlisle in the summer he was 17, when he was dying from the Spanish flu. Carlisle only turns those who are dying. He would never turn someone who he considered to have another choice. Edward goes through how all the family came to be. Carlisle, and then himself, and then Esme, Rosalie, Emmett, Jasper, and Alice. Carlisle had meant Rosalie as a partner for Edward, but they never saw each other that way, and Rosalie quickly fell in love with Emmett instead. Sometimes they live separately from us as a married couple, but the younger we pretend to be, the longer we can stay in any given place. Fawkes seemed perfect, so we all enrolled in high school, he laughed. I suppose we'll have to go to their wedding in a few years, again. They've reached home by this point, and Bella is humanly hungry, but she doesn't want to part ways yet, so she invites Edward to come inside, where we get the famous reveal that he's been watching her sleep for God knows how long. I knew about this through cultural osmosis, but I had forgotten until literally this point. And she's not creeped out. She's just embarrassed because she's been like sleep talking his name and stuff. Jesus Christ. Then Charlie comes home, so Edward dashes from the room. Charlie can sense that Bella seems a little bit wired, but he doesn't directly ask her anything. And she's just like, cool, good night, Dad. She goes upstairs where Edward is lying on her bed. Poor Bella. She asks him to stay, and he does, and they spend the whole night cuddling and talking, and Bella is going absolutely insane. Eventually Bella says, so, you know how you said that Rosalie and Emmett are like together? Do you think that we could ever, like... Edward says, no! Bella, your human body is more fragile than you could ever know, and I'm so strong I could break you with one wrong move, and I would never put you in danger like that. And Bella is disappointed. Eventually she falls asleep, having made him promise to stay with her all night. And she's thrilled to wake the next morning and find out that he kept his promise. Charlie has already left for the day, so they get to roleplay domesticity like any young couple does when the parents are away. Breakfast time, he said eventually, casually, to prove, I'm sure, that he remembered all my human frailties. So, I clutched my throat with both hands and stared at him with wide eyes. Shock crossed his face. Kidding, I snickered. And you said I couldn't act. He frowned in disgust. That wasn't funny. It was very funny, and you know it. But I examined his gold eyes carefully to make sure that I was forgiven. Apparently I was. Shall I rephrase? He asked. Breakfast time for the human. Oh, okay. I just know they didn't let her be that funny in the movies. Actually, all the dialogue in this chapter is so funny, and I'm upset that I can't just read you the whole thing, lest this summary video become an audiobook. Edward suggests that she should meet his family today, and he says that she should probably introduce him to her dad as her boyfriend. He will need some explanation for why I'm around here so much. I don't want Chief Swan getting a restraining order put on me. Bella gets changed into the infamous khaki skirt, the sexiest thing a Mormon woman can imagine, and they go to meet Edward's family. I have been dying to meet Edward's family for the past 280 pages, so I am excited. They meet Carlisle, who Bella has met before, of course, and Esme, who she hasn't. They both greet her really warmly and genuinely welcome her into the house and seem to like her. And they also meet Alice and Jasper. "Hi, Bella," Alice said, and she bounced forward to kiss my cheek. If Carlisle and Esme had looked cautious before, they now looked staggered. There was shock in my eyes too, but I was also very pleased that she seemed to approve of me so entirely. "You do smell nice. I never noticed before," she commented, to my extreme embarrassment. Rosalie and Emmett are the only two who don't come out to meet her, and Edward explains that Rosalie is very, very wary and also a little bit jealous. "You're human." She wishes that she was too. "Rosalie, I cannot wait to find out more about you." Edward gives her a little tour of the house. I stopped dead at the end of the hall, staring incredulously at the ornament hanging on the wall above my head. Edward chuckled at my bewildered expression. "You can laugh," he said. "It is sort of ironic." I didn't laugh. My hand raised automatically, one finger extended as if to touch the large wooden cross. That rocks. That's just sick as hell. Edward explains that it was made by Carlisle's father in the early 1630s. Carlisle himself has just passed his 362nd birthday. He was the only son of an Anglican pastor. His mother died giving birth to him. His father was an intolerant man. As the Protestants came into power, he was enthusiastic in his persecution of Roman Catholics and other religions. He also believed very strongly in the reality of evil. He led hunts for witches, werewolves, and vampires. Carlisle was supposed to follow in his father's footsteps, but he didn't have the same hatred inside him to carry out the work. He had too much compassion. He wasn't so quick to accuse innocent people. Carlisle was only 23 years old when he finally located a group of genuine vampires. He was bitten badly and barely survived, but of course, because he didn't die, he was turned. Becoming the thing your parents hate and even you hated at one point? Oh, Living with yourself anyway? Oh, Bella wants to know more about their history, and Edward's like, well, why don't we just ask him? So they go to Carlisle's office. His office is like a beautiful library with towering bookshelves and pictures all over the walls. The room was how I'd always imagined a college dean's would look, only Carlisle looked too young to fit the part. Edward asks Carlisle if he would tell the story of his vampire youth, and Carlisle said he would love to normally, but he's actually been called into work, so he leaves them alone in his office. He says that Carlisle was disgusted with what he had become, and tried to end his life in various ways, none of them successful. He refused to feed on humans, eventually trying to starve himself, until one day he ran into the forest and ate a deer. He realised he can live as a vampire without stooping to killing humans, and he's held that philosophy ever since. Stephenie Meyer sometimes strikes gold when she's writing her dialogue. Like, it's so funny and naturalistic in places. I just wanna... He began to make better use of his time. He'd always been intelligent, eager to learn, and now he had unlimited time ahead of him. He studied by night, planned by day. He swam to France and swam to France? People swim the channel all the time, Bella. That's true, I guess. It just sounded funny in that context. Go on. Swimming is easy for us. Swimming is easy for you. I won't interrupt again, I promise. Because technically we don't need to breathe. You don't. Anyway, it took Carlisle 2 centuries of self-control to get to the point where human blood has absolutely no effect on him. And now he can be a doctor safely. He genuinely loves being a doctor and helping people. king. He was lonely though, having no human friends anymore, which brings us of course to the saving of Edward in Chicago. They leave Carlisle's study and go to Edward's room instead. Of course, it's not a bedroom as we would think of it because vampires can't sleep, but it is his space in the house, and he's decorated it mostly with shelves of CDs. He loves music. They hang out for a while until Alice and Jasper come in, asking if Edward wants to play ball. He's up for it, and they invite Bella too. We have to wait for Thunder to play ball. You'll see why, he promised. What will we be playing? I demanded. You will be watching, Edward clarified. We will be playing baseball. I rolled my eyes. Vampires like baseball. It's the American pastime. There's a few hours until the baseball game, so Edward and Bella go back to Bella's house for some reason. But when they get there, Billy and Jacob are waiting. Billy has come to warn Charlie about Edward, but Charlie isn't home. Bella goes inside while Edward dashes off back home, and she plays dumb. Billy asks Jacob to fetch him something from the car and takes the moment alone with Bella to warn her about the Cullens. However, she surprises him with how much she already knows. Billy had assumed that she had no idea about them being vampires, but she all but says that she's already in on the secret, and because of this, he agrees that it's her own business whether or not she wants to tell her dad. Still, he warns her to stop what she's doing. There's no picture anywhere in that car. Jacob's complaining voice reached us before he did. Billy grunted, suddenly detached, spinning his wheelchair around to face his son. I guess I left it at home. They leave, with Billy telling Bella pointedly to take care. Jessica calls to tell Bella about the school dance, but Charlie comes home just as she's asking about Edward, so they say goodbye and hang up the phone. Bella admits to Charlie that she spent the morning at the Cullens' place and, well, kinda has a date with Edward Cullen. Charlie reacts like a protective father, angry at first and then just kind of concerned and interested and calming down, especially when Bella says that Edward will be here literally any minute to pick her up for the game. And he is, right on time, coming in so polite, like the model boy. So, I hear you're getting my girl to watch baseball. Only in Washington, with the fact that it was raining buckets, have no bearing at all on the playing of outdoor sports. Yes, sir, that's the plan. Well, more power to you, I guess. They don't stay for long, and Charlie tells Bella not to be home too late, and they're off. Outside, Edward has brought this massive Jeep to drive them most of the way to the baseball game. They drive half the way and then walk the rest. Well, they run again, with Edward carrying Bella. They get to the field and all the kids run off to play ball, leaving Bella with Esme. You don't play with them? I asked shyly. No, I prefer to referee. I like keeping them honest, she explained. Do they like to cheat then? Oh yes. You should hear the arguments they get into. Actually, I hope you don't. You would think they were raised by a pack of wolves. Esme is supportive of Bella and Edward's relationship, saying that it hurt her to see Edward alone for so long and she just wants them to be happy and it will work out somehow. And then they play ball. I love the vampire baseball game! It's so fun, it's so cool. They use their vampire speed and strength and agility to play baseball, and the reason they need the thunder as cover is because when they throw the ball so far and so fast that when they smack it with the bat, it cracks so loud that it's like thunder. It's so freaking cute. It's so cute, in fact, that I should have known some shit was coming. The game is interrupted by Alice having a vision of 3 vampires who are approaching right now. They heard the ball game and they want to play, which wouldn't usually be an issue if Bella wasn't here. In the end, they decide to stay calm and try not to draw too much attention to her. The vampires appear from the tree line. Victoria, Laurent, and James. Bella describes them as cat-like, walking with a gait that seemed constantly on the edge of shifting into a crouch. God, I love animalistic descriptors for people! We thought we heard a game, Laurent said in a relaxed voice with the slightest of French accents. We thought we had a game. Carlisle introduces his family, casually including Bella in the list of names. He says they're just finishing up the ball game, however they're welcome to come back to their house to hang out. Laurent, Victoria and James are nomads, which is a much more common way for vampires to be rather than having a permanent residence somewhere. So Laurent is actually really interested in the way that they live. He's just a chill old guy. They're almost out of the woods, so to speak, when the wind shifts, and James catches Bella's scent. Immediately he's on guard, and Edward is too, to protect her, and that was the wrong move. Carlisle confirms that Bella is there as a friend, even though she's human. When Laurent spoke, his tone was soothing, trying to diffuse the sudden hostility. It appears we have a lot to learn about each other. He accepts their invitation to come back to their place, and they leave with Rosalie, Esme and Jasper, while Emmett, Edward and Alice take Bella back to the Jeep. But no one has calmed down yet. In fact, when they get in the Jeep, Edward starts to drive them out of town. Bella's screaming, "Where are you taking me? Take me home, Edward! I feel sick!" That's not a quote, that's me talking. Edward reveals the reason that they're all so scared. James is a tracker. He lives for the hunt, and he especially lives for a challenge. And they've just inadvertently handed him the challenge of his life. A human girl with 7 vampires willing to kill to protect her. Of course he's going to take that up. He's going to track her scent until he finds her, and they need to get her far, far away to give them enough time to kill him. But Bella points out the obvious. If James tracks her scent back to her house, he's going to kill her dad. And Alice says she's right. They're arguing about what to do when Bella speaks up. Does anyone want to hear my plan? You take me back. I tell my dad I want to go home to Phoenix. I pack my bags. We wait until this tracker is watching, and then we run. He'll follow us and leave Charlie alone. Charlie won't call the FBI on your family, and then you can take me any damned place that you want. And of course they're all like, that might just work. Back at Bella's house, Charlie has been waiting up, worried. She and Edward get to the door and she's like, "I love you and don't listen to anything else I say tonight." And then she kicks the door open and she's like, "Go away, Edward!" She tells her dad that she broke up with Edward and she hates Forks and she's leaving right now. I almost can't recount this scene to you because I found it so genuinely devastating. Charlie says, "Bella, at least wait until next week when your mum's back," which is a bit of a curveball. "She called while you were out. Things aren't going so well in Florida, and if Phil doesn't get signed by the end of the week, they're going back to Arizona." Bella realises that in order for him to let her go, she needs to say the most hurtful thing that she can possibly think of. She uses the words that her mum said when she left him, and I don't know why she knows the exact words that her mum said when she left him. "Just let me go, Charlie. It didn't work out, okay? I really, really hate Forks." This does the job, and Charlie lets her go. It also does the job in drawing James away from her house. However, in worse news, he's kind of running behind the Jeep right now. Edward's like, "We're gonna have to kill him," and Bella takes the opportunity to ask, "How do you actually kill a vampire?" And Edward says, "The only way to be sure is to cut him up into tiny little pieces and burn the pieces." That is a little bit more work than just like cutting the head off, I guess. You assume death at decapitation. They make it back to the Cullens' house and Laurent is there. He's really apologetic, but he's also like, "I can't do anything for you now. James is unstoppable. I'm going to Alaska, goodbye." I can feel Bella in the midst of all these people moving around her and everyone knows more than she does and she doesn't know where she's going and I'm stressed. She trades clothes with Esme to mask her scent, even if it's only going to work for a short time, and then she goes downstairs to say goodbye to Edward. One last kiss, "I love you," and then he's gone. Every time Bella kisses or otherwise touches Edward, she always mentions how cold he is. His stone cold skin, his icy lips. I know he's cold. It sounds so unpleasant. I don't want to kiss him. You don't have to mention it every time. For a moment, Bella is left alone with Jasper. "You're wrong, you know," he said quietly. "I can feel what you're feeling now, and you are worth it." "I'm not," I mumbled. "If anything happens to them, it will be for nothing." "You're wrong," he repeated, smiling kindly at me. I heard nothing, but then Alice stepped through the front door and came toward me with her arms held out. "May I?" she asked. "You're the first one to ask permission." I love you, Alice Cullen. Bella wakes up in a hotel suite in Phoenix with Alice and Jasper. Mama y Papa. Carlisle hasn't called yet, and all they can do is wait. After a very long day of waiting, Bella is alone with Alice, and she ends up asking her how one becomes a vampire. Alice says that Edward didn't want her to know, but she does end up telling her, with the caveat that she only knows in theory. She's never done it or seen it done, and she famously has no memory of her human life, so she doesn't remember it being done to her either. Basically, it's your standard vampire bite with one stark originality. Vampires are a little bit venomous. Usually this venom helps to incapacitate their prey so they can't fight back after the first bite. However, If the vampire who gave the bite has enough self-control not to finish their victim off, the venom will turn the bitten person into a vampire. Unfortunately, it is really, 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 really painful. Keep that in mind, Bells. Suddenly, Alice jumps up. She's had a new vision. She can see a room of mirrors with a thin band running around it, and she also sees a dark room with a VCR. It's not until Alice starts sketching the room that Bella recognises it as a ballet studio. You can see it, right? Bella says it could just be any old ballet studio, as they all look much the same, and she hasn't been to ballet class in nearly 10 years, but Alice and Jasper aren't convinced. And where was the studio Bella used to attend? Well, of course it was right around the corner from her mum's house. Jasper confirms that the telephone line in the hotel is secure, so Bella leaves her mum a voicemail. "Mum, don't come home yet. Ring me back at this number whenever you can." When Bella wakes up the next morning, or the next night, actually, Alice is sketching again. She's sketching the dark room with the VCR, but it's not dark anymore. The sun has come up and the room is easily recognisable, at least to Bella, because it's her mum's house. I'm sick. Alice tells her that Edward is coming and she and Jasper are going to look after her mum, but Bella says, "I can't win, Alice. You can't guard everyone I know forever. Don't you see what he's doing? He's not tracking me at all. He'll find someone. He'll hurt someone I love. Alice, I can't." "We'll catch him, Bella," she assured me. "And what if you get hurt, Alice? Do you think that's okay with me? Do you think it's only my human family he can hurt me with?" Bella's mum finally rings her back and Bella picks up the phone, but it's too late. James's voice comes over the telephone line. He tells her what to say, he tells her to get away from Alice and Jasper somehow, and to come to her mum's house and then go where he tells her to next, and she already knows where that is. She knows it's going to end for her in the ballet studio. So she does it. She comes out and tells Alice that she got her mum to stay away, and Alice believes her. But before they leave, Bella writes a letter for Edward. "I love you. I am so sorry. He has my mum and I have to try. I know it may not work. Don't be angry with Alice and Jasper. If I get away from them, it will be a miracle. Tell them thank you for me. Please don't come after him. That's what he wants, I think. I can't bear it if anyone has to be hurt because of me, especially you. I love you. Forgive me. Bella." When Bella next emerges from her room, Alice is having another vision. As soon as Bella decided to meet James at the ballet studio, Alice could see her there. However, that is all she sees. She doesn't know that Bella is going to end up there through her own choices. They go to the airport before 7 o'clock and sit in Terminal 4 waiting for Edward's plane to land. Bella bides her time until there's 20 minutes until he's going to appear, and then she asks Jasper if he can take her to get some breakfast. She asks to use the bathroom as they pass by. As soon as the door shut behind me, I was running. I remembered the time I'd gotten lost from this bathroom, because it had 2 exits. She runs out of the bathroom, sprinting for the elevators, knowing that any minute now Alice and Jasper could be on her trail. She takes a shuttle to the Hyatt Hotel, she dives into a taxi and gives the taxi driver her mum's address. When she gets there, the house is dark. Just as James promised, there's a phone number on the whiteboard and she rings it, but she already knows where he's going to tell her to go. There was no time to look back at my house, and I didn't want to see it as it was now. Empty, a symbol of fear instead of sanctuary. The last person to walk through those familiar rooms was my enemy. She gets to the ballet studio, and although the pink paper sign on the door says that it's closed for spring break, it is unlocked. She moves through the lobby slowly, only hurrying when she hears her mother's voice calling her name, but when she gets into the studio, her mother isn't really there. It's just a video on the VCR. And that is where Twilight made me cry. James is there, however. "Sorry about that, Bella, but isn't it better that your mother didn't really have to be involved in all of this?" And it hits her. She's been tricked. But she's actually relieved. James gets what he wants, ending the chase, and no one that she loved actually had to be hurt after all. It's perfect. But James asks if he can leave a little letter of his own for Edward and reveals that he's been filming this whole thing like a creeper. And on video, James reveals the real reason that he's doing all this. It's not really about Bella at all. It's not even about Edward. It's about Alice. You see, when Alice was a human, she had a vampire that was obsessed with her, just like Edward is obsessed with Bella. James was hunting her down, but the vampire who loved her did the one thing that he knew would truly, truly keep her safe. He turned her. James killed him in revenge, leaving Alice all alone, but he's always hated the fact that she evaded him. Seeing her in the clearing was a complete surprise, but his plan quickly formed. I get you, but they get her. The one victim who escaped me. Quite an honour, actually. Bella wishes that he would just get it over with, eat her and go, but James likes to play with his food. And eventually, Bella passes out from blood loss. At first, Bella thinks she's dead, because she can hear Edward's voice. But slowly, she comes out of her haze and she can hear Alice and Carlisle too, and she realises, no, they actually have found her. Thank God. The pain hits her all at once and she starts to scream that her hand is burning, and they realise James has bitten her. See if you can suck the venom back out. The wound is fairly clean, Carlisle says. Will that work? Alice's voice was strained. I don't know, Carlisle said, but we have to hurry. Edward doesn't know if he can do it. Taste Bella's blood after all this time resisting doing that very thing and restrain himself. But he does. He sucks all the venom out. A testament to his love. Bella wakes up in the hospital. It's been 5 days since the ball game, however long since James attacked her. Edward is there with her and he tells her that her mum's there too. Why did you tell her I'm here? You fell down 2 flights of stairs and through a window. He paused. You have to admit it could happen. He pretends to be asleep in the chair when her mum comes in. She tells Bella that she's been sleeping at the hospital, and when Bella's like, oh no, mum, you shouldn't have, she reveals that she's actually been kind of nervous to sleep at home due to some recent crime in her neighbourhood. Someone burnt down the old ballet studio. Bella confirms that she wants to keep living in Forks, and it's only slightly to do with the fact that Edward's there. She asks her mum if she's had a chance to talk with him, and her mum says yes. Bella asks, what does she think? And her mum says, I think that boy's in love with you. Bella says, I'm kind of crazy about him too. When her mum has left the room again, Bella tries to convince Edward to turn her into a vampire. She says that instead of sucking out the poison, they should have just let James's venom spread. She wants them to be equals, to be together forever. But Edward flatly refuses. They don't come to a conclusion, instead reaching an impasse. The title of the chapter. Although Bella calls Edward out on something. She says that Alice has already had this vision, hasn't she? She's already seen me as a vampire. And Edward says, she also saw you dead and that didn't happen. And Bella says, I wouldn't bet against Alice. She gets more pain meds, and as she's falling back to sleep, she says, I'm betting on Alice. However long later, Edward surprises Bella by taking her to the prom. Something that she absolutely does not want to do, mind you. They've put the poor girl in one stiletto while her other leg is in a boot. Has Stephanie Meyer ever seen shoes before? When they get to the prom, she starts to actually have fun, cute, until Jacob shows up and he's all, do you mind if I cut in? It turns out his dad paid him $20 to gatecrash the junior prom and deliver a message to Bella. He wants her to break up with Edward, of course. She says that Edward and his dad really did save her life, hoping that Jacob will pass on that message to Billy, who will hopefully understand the true meaning behind it. Poor Jacob is so pookie pie, bro. He hates that he's having to do this. There's more? I asked in disbelief. Forget it, he mumbled. I glared at him until he met my gaze. Just spit it out, Jacob. It's so bad. Billy said to tell her, we'll be watching. And she's not fazed. This girl not fazed of anything. Jacob leaves and Bella is with Edward again, who takes her outside. She is embarrassed, but she confesses that when she was getting all dressed up, she thought that maybe Edward had changed his mind and that he was going to turn her after all. You thought that would be a black tie occasion, did you? He still doesn't agree, but they agree that they love each other. And that will be enough for now. Enough for forever. So that was pretty good. I really enjoyed that book. I found the dialogue really funny. I found the characters quite compelling. I like Bella as a main character, despite being able to recognise that there is some substance missing there, unfortunately. I find Edward and Bella a really cute couple, barring, significant flaws. And I find the rest of Edward's family really interesting characters. some may say significantly more interesting than Edward himself, but you know. And I am quite interested in reading New Moon, which I don't actually have yet, but if you would like to see me read New Moon, please make some noise in the comments and I will certainly read it next. After I have read You Look Good in a Coffin by Katie Brent, the sequel to How to Kill Men and Get Away with It, which I didn't know existed until somebody in my comment section let me know. So I am very excited to read that, and you will definitely be hearing my thoughts on it at some point later. But that brings us to the end of the video, and I am honestly upset to be finished with Twilight. It was an exciting read, and I will be interested to return to these characters at a later date. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and bye. That's not correct. Have I been recording my audio? Imagine if I wasn't recording my audio this whole time. I'd kill myself.